Get started. That means we're going to get started with the pledge for everyone that's in the room. And we'll start as soon as we're ready. And Brad, if you will.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I almost forgot the pledge. We are back from exec. We are in open session, and there was one item on our agenda just in the beginning, and we need to appoint a new board clerk, and we'd like to do that now.
I'll move we appoint Tricia Beresford as the clerk of the City School District for the 2018-19 school year.
Second.
Second by Moira, she won. So I think without further ado, and all in favor? That's everything, everyone. We have a quorum, and Tricia, you're welcome and thank you. And
Thank you.
we're off to the races. Here we go.
That's right.
So the board clerk has a wide range of responsibilities. Mainly is to keep us in accordance with all New York State laws and make sure our meetings are legal, and she is responsible, he or she is responsible for the election in the spring and a myriad of other duties, and so it's really an important job for this board, and basically required by the New York State law that we have a board clerk. And so it's important for all our meeting minutes to get posted and be recorded on time. And so it's it's really a great to have Tricia here, and we look forward to working with Tricia going forward.
Thank you.
That being said, public comment period. I see a
Modification to the agenda.
I slipped ahead. Thank you, Brad. There you go.
The personnel report for instructional staff has been revised. There were actually 2 names removed.
Okay.
So it's just revised. I'll offer that as the change to the agenda.
Thanks, Brad. Without objection, we will make that so. And are we good? We're now on to public comment. And I am seeing my golden passport to the arts, and that means Alice.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Alice Wu. I'm Julie Hughes. We are part of the Fine Arts Booster Group, and we wanted to give you these golden passports, as usual, so you can go to all the great arts events that the ICSD has for free, including the ones that need tickets. So, and we know there's going to be lots of great events. So we just wanted to thank you for all your hard work and all that you do for our district. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you. And the collage concert's coming up soon.
Yeah, so that'll be a great event with the Ithaca High School Band, Orchestra, and Choir. Will be coming up in the next few weeks, and it's always amazing. You should definitely go. And we just went to LAF, which was the Little Apple Fall Follies. We helped at the Little Apple Fall Follies, which is the Rotary Club and the Savage Club, who partners also with the ICSD, and it was an amazing event, and with great participation from the High School.
Thank you. Thank you both. That's all that have signed up. Anyone else wish to speak before we move on? Any students that aren't sitting at the table and just really want to talk about their senior year, or any opportunity to earn extra credit? No, we do give that from time to time, but student reps. And Moira, I don't see any LACS next week, so Ithaca High. There you go. Great to see you. Go ahead.
So last Tuesday, advocates J.C. Good and Steve Johnson spoke to driver's ed students in Culp Auditorium about distracted driving. Their presentation went into emotional depth about J.C.'s own car accident that left her severely brain damaged, which was the result of someone talking on their phone while driving. They stressed that just talking on your phone without even holding it can cripple your vision while driving. They left students by stressing to never use their phones while driving, unless using careful precautions while another person is in the car and can help. Additionally, Ithaca High School will be having its first open house, well, this year's open house this Thursday, October 11th. Childcare will be provided, and children will be supervised by members of Link Crew and National Junior Honor Society.
Due to rainy weather last Tuesday, our fire drill day was canceled. And so, although a specific day is yet to be announced, Mr. Crumble announced to us early in the morning that it'll be rescheduled soon, and that had there been an alarm that day, we would have had to evacuate because it would have been a real alarm. So we were safe. So this past Wednesday, Mayor Sponte Myrick joined 12th graders who were in participation in government at a field trip that they took to the Ithaca City Council, and he spoke about public service, his motivations for running for political office, and as an added bonus, he gave his predictions about the NFL. So in IHS sports, boys soccer won their senior night on Thursday against Oswego, and then the next day, girls soccer also won their senior night, also against Oswego. Girls tennis is still undefeated this season, so we're hoping that they remain that way throughout the season and throughout the playoffs. And despite their multiple losses after their first win, the football team and their fans remain optimistic heading into the second half of the season.
For IHS clubs and activities, the IHS Brave team won a tournament at Columbia University this past weekend, beating 2 nationally top 10 ranked teams. IHS now has a new active minds club dedicated to promoting mental wellness and positivity throughout the school. They created a bulletin board with pick-me-ups that students can pick up during the school day. And the National Honor Society is planning on holding its induction ceremony for the new class of members on October 30th. And the German Club is expecting the arrival of this year's exchange students this Wednesday, issuing in another year of the German-American Partnership Program. Going back to what these two ladies said, we encourage you all to save the date for the Performing Arts Ensemble Collective Performance, which will be on October 24th.
Anything else? All good? Thank you. Board responses, anyone, anything? Ann, go ahead.
First, thank you for this golden pass and for everything you do. And the other thing, I just want to say, this is public service announcement that for those of you who are eligible to vote, the deadline for registering to vote is October 12th, so that's really soon. And I just want to bring it up here because just because New York State has such an early deadline relative to some places, and before the deadline, I thought I could mention it.
Thanks, Ann. Anyone else? I will only ask or add, Dr. Brown, do we always announce fire drills? I mean, is that kind of goes against the idea of a drill? You know, if I already know it's going to be a drill, is it really a drill? Or do I not really go to school that day? Or these are rhetorical, Elmer's not here. I was asking rhetorical questions. This is like, okay, sorry.
Not just your plan.
Yeah, okay, all right. We do realize that there have to be a certain amount of fire drills throughout the year, and we have heard that in the past there were some complaints. Well, we never even had one. Well, we do, and they are scheduled. We have emergency procedure safety. We have a safety plan, correct? We have a safety. Just to make that point. And, anything else? Sean, do you have anything to help me out here?
I will when we get to policies. I'll have plenty.
So let's go on to the consents.
Move the consent is presented.
Second.
Second by Maura. Anything that fairly short. So we're good. All right. Moved, seconded. All in favor? That is everyone, and we are 6. Right. We do have some absentees tonight, but we are 6, and we do have a quorum, so we are all good. And speaking of quorums, Dr. Brown, you are a quorum of 1.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Hagan. And it's always good to see so many students here, and a special shout out to Nathaniel Simon back there, who's been a member of the Student Superintendent Advisory Council for 5 years now, Nathaniel? You were a baby when you started. But he, along with 29 of his peers, have been informing the work of our school districts for many, many years. So I want to thank you publicly for your service, and we're going to be meeting in a couple of weeks once we get the letters out. So thank you for being here. And the one announcement I wanted to share, the ICSD Insider was published yesterday, and in there we announced the Team ICSD Day, which will be on November the 13th. So I'm asking folks to mark your calendars. This will be the third year we've done Team ICSD Day, where we're asking folks to wear a cardinal, the color cardinal, and to post why the ICSD has impacted positively their lives. So Team ICSD Day will be on the 13th, and we will be sharing more information about that soon. And on that same day, we will have our commendation ceremony, the first Board of Education commendation ceremony for the year. And we promise it will be the biggest one yet.
It's always the biggest one. That's, we've heard that before. All good, Dr. Brown?
All good.
All right, let's roll into school district business and digital portfolio.
Some friends want to invite you to the table.
I've heard a lot about Seesaw recently, Dr. Brown.
First, thanks for having us this evening. We wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about digital portfolios and specifically, in this instance, what we're doing at the elementary level. First, I want to introduce the folks up here with me. We have Karen Arnold, a teacher at Northeast, who's been a Seesaw user, which is a tool we're going to talk to you about. And then we have Matt O'Donnell, who's an instructional technology integration specialist that works with us through BOE. So two great colleagues that see this and use this every single day. So we want to take a few minutes and talk about digital portfolio tools that we're using in our district. And one of the things that we think about with digital portfolios is that in the world we have with our students that is increasingly digital, having what we call multimodal, or really just we're saying the ability to create presentations in lots of different forms. It could be written, it could be a video, it could be an audio, is really important because that's the work that adults do every day, and it's something that if we work with our students and show them how to do it, it's a great skill for later on. Other things that are coming along with these digital portfolios that are really innovative and can push how we work with our students and the things we can learn. Peer feedback and the ability to create authentic audiences has been really fantastic. We're going to show you about some really interesting home-to-school connections and how we can connect to almost any device in a family or a caregiver. And then what we also found is that when students have digital portfolios that they can easily refer back to, it really empowers them as they document their learning. And then what we've also found is that when we create portfolios that follow students year to year to year, we can actually see their growth over time and instantly compare and contrast, say, first grade with fourth grade. And we'll talk about why that's fantastic. And then we've even found that some of these tools can help us make determinations about students' abilities, and we can look at the past work to see, is there somewhere where they need extra support. So at the elementary level, we've been using a tool called Seesaw. And the short version is teachers create activities to share with their students. Students can then be multimodal and use almost any type of device and capture videos or capture their learning in a lot of different ways. And then families can look at the student work. One of the reasons that we like this, and you see this at the bottom here, is a chart. And this is a chart of the last month at one of our elementary schools. So we can actually keep track from a district level, each school, like how many parent visits there were. This is totaling maybe over the past year at Northeast. You'll see there's 2,800 parent visits to look at student work, actual work that was performed in the classroom. We can also see how many likes that work got. So you see likes outpace visits, that's a good sign. And then we can also see comments, which is a great way where we're actually commenting on the work that occurred, which traditionally was something that occurred primarily in student-teacher, parent-teacher conferences. And then lastly, you can see about 4,400 total items. And then in this month alone, you can see Northeast has already posted about 200 or so. Every single school has a portal just like this, and we can kind of keep track of that work. And then we can actually look at all the work. So one of the things that's nice is this really helps students with self-assessment.
Yeah, so these are a couple of student examples where they use photos and then text to reflect a little bit about it. And I thought the one on the left was a particularly powerful reflection where they said, at first I didn't do so well working with my group, but then I felt better working with them on the project. And there's just so many of these moments that actually happen on Seesaw that you might not have that face-to-face interaction or be able to check in with every single kid in class, that this gives every kid kind of a voice, that check-in time. The one on the right I thought was a really high cognitive reflection, because not only are they referencing the learning target for the lesson, but they're talking about things that they need to improve and things that they did well on. It's a really well formed reflection there.
And these are those examples. So when we say in that school there's 4,400 of these over the last year, they're entries exactly like these. Different abilities, different students, but the same idea. So one of the things we really like is that this tracks student, you can go ahead and track student use over time. This tracks students over time, where we can compare our students, we can look at the process of learning, not just the final product. And then we can look at, it also is really nice because it creates transparency. So let's see, we're going to connect to Karen's computer. Let's see if we did this right. The source. Look at that.
So today in science class, one of the things that were started our weather and climate unit, and they just look at how water reacts on different surfaces. So I was able to create this. I literally took the picture in class as they were doing the experiment, went up my computer and did the activity within a second, well, 2 seconds. I put it there, and then I told the kids that they could either record or take a picture of themselves if they didn't want that. This little boy here, who I have permission from his mom. As you can, you could just see that just popped up. I just had family engagement. See that number 1? Mm-hmm. And now I have an inbox over there that tells me because somebody just responded. This was his response to what happened today. Okay.
Hi, my name is Becky. Can you learn about what happens when water goes on different surfaces? When water was on the wax paper, it repelled the water. When it went on the paper towel absorbed the water. When it went on the writing paper, it attracted and probably also absorbed the water. And when it went on the aluminum foil, it repelled the water.
So we got to talk a little bit about what material would make a good rain jacket. Which one would you want? One made out of paper towel or wax paper? Why? I'm looking for vocabulary words today. Did they get repelled? Did they get absorbed? Attract? Those kind of science words. So I can use it as self-assessment right away. I can comment. I've been fortunate enough to have Benji for 2 years. I taught 2nd grade last year and 3rd grade this year. So I can, if you go over to the class, you can see last year's class, 233. I can go back and look at 25 of his journal entries. I can do these for all the children. So if the children come to me and having Seesaw from kindergarten on, I can see their progression, which is some of the things that we put on there are fluency. We have children read certain passages and we can see their growth with reading over time, with writing. We just started Seesaw towards the end of September, October, just logistics, getting school started. But he has 6 entries. You can see the folders, and then I can say, either I or Benji doesn't have enough in a certain area, or what else could we do there to showcase his learning. Some of the other things, rounding to the nearest tens place. Their goal that week was I can round to the nearest 10, I can round to the nearest 100. And then he has...
This is how I know to round to the nearest 10. Let's say the 10s is 5. And the 1s is 8. I round up because 5 or more you push it up to the highest 10.
So you get an idea of what you can do there. And I'm looking, I say to parents, your child might not have accurate information there when I post it. It shows us their learning. Hopefully later on there'll be another entry that shows the progression, that they didn't have it yet, but now they do. Some of the other things, we're doing a global read aloud right now, and the little boy in our global read aloud gets a pet skunk, so then they could go and research skunks. I could have a link on there that took them to National Geographic to read, then they had to go back and put at least 4 facts about that. We did a beginning of the year where we just worked on descriptor words for ourselves. And then here too, I think the one that I like is I struggle with a lot, I'm good at a lot. And then we can talk about that. And the kids, you can see one little girl says she likes it, but we'll work on comments later on in the year and what makes a good comment. I can invite families either by paper, which I do, and by email, which I've done too. The other thing that I can do now too is I can print part of their portfolio and send it home, and that'll be next for the parents that have not yet connected, hoping to draw them in. I get an email every week, similar to what Zach was saying, but mine's just on my class and tells me exactly how many people have connected, who's made comments. I also now, I love that we have a license, so I've been using Seesaw probably for 5 or 6 years. Way back when we had iPads, sorry. There was only 1 year in between when we went from iPads to the Chromebooks, and Seesaw hadn't caught up yet, so it wasn't user-friendly. They're user-friendly again, so I went back. But this is me looking through Seesaw World, and teachers from all over the world will put things. I always say the best ideas are borrowed ideas. I can edit, I can make my own template from that. A boy called back, that's a global read aloud. I can go there, what are other teachers doing? I then can connect with them all over. The other thing I love, do you see the school library? Brand new this year because we have a license. I used to only be able to have Seesaw Library. What's pretty cool about school library is I can post to my 3rd grade team the things I've done. And what I figured out today's assignment, what happens to water when it falls on different surfaces, I now emailed it to my colleagues, and one of them actually ran to me and said, please show me how to do that. So, there's like this nice excitement that's happening this year with this license. I also then can go to my library and see some of the things that I have posted throughout the years and search it that way. I can search by subjects and that. Now, another wonderful thing that Seesaw does is we can do PD in our PJs. So I can be home, and they always send out emails. I sign up for these, and I can sign up and I can do personal development right at home. So there's just a lot of resources, things that you can do. I get excited about using Seesaw. I think it was years ago I ran to Mike Dingham and said, hey, look at what I found, and it's just blown up, which is wonderful, so.
Great, well, thank you. So just a couple things to highlight. Hopefully you see that we're using this tool to take steps that we couldn't have done before. Particularly like the ability to connect with families, the idea that when a student piece of work is posted and the teacher approves it, parents can, most parents have smartphones or computers or email accounts. They can get notifications directly there on their phone, and on any device they can access that. So for us, one of the main selling points is that connection piece. So the idea that, a video was posted and you can actually click in and see what your student's doing. And then to add to that, if you think about previously when we had parent-teacher conferences, our students are reflecting or talking about work that occurred 2 months ago. Well, now we can have that video clip right there that we can actually see what was learned in the moment and then reflect about that process. Here we have a couple of reflections from the Caroline team, and we checked with them, and the families were good with us showing them. The first one has pretty good audio. One of the interesting things here is it looks like it's in like a shark's mouth. It's not. It's actually foam, and they made these little recording booths. So it's a little sort of maker project that made fun recording booths, and you can hear.
The problem is that water is going over our bridges, and we want to actually make bridges so people can go across them. And we've made models of our bridges that we are gonna make. And we're gonna every kind of bridge you can think of. But there are only 3 bridges because we were saying we're to do it. We are going to work on the wilderness trail and make the bridge so the water will go over it. and we can't leave anyone behind because we're all a community.
So it's a lot of themes there. And what's nice is we didn't take us a lot to look and find this material on this platform. So it's not like we went through 4,000 posts and found 3. Like, this is all over there, and that's really for us. That's a great feeling. Do you want to hit the homeschool connection? I know we talked about this, but
Yeah. So I think one of the most powerful parts of Seesaw is the home to school connection. There's some fun family moments up here where it's even thinking about as someone who does a lot of professional development, like family feedback. Like, it'd be great to have a family night to do what would be the best feedback to give your students on Seesaw. But I love the one on the left. My heart would be pounding too if it were next to a wolf pack. I love your story and your howling wolf drawing. In the upper right-hand corner, a tender moment between a mother and a son, and stop saying XOXO. Which is sweet. But she was telling him to smile. That's what it was. He didn't have a smile in the picture. Smile. And then on the bottom here, just getting feedback from students, from your family, and from your teacher, I think can be a really powerful piece.
And in some cases, we even have administrators will jump in and make comments on the student.
And I had a mother today that emailed me, and I haven't gotten it to yet. Her mother lives in Europe, and she's asked her if she could be connected. So all I do is have to go in and approve her. So extended family, and that will motivate that child even more too.
Another element is peer feedback. A lot of the same ideas, and I think Karen referenced that they're building towards that as well.
Yeah, just something to notice on here is you can also give feedback using audio as well. It's not just one of the ways that you can upload in Seesaw, but you can give feedback that way. So if the student is more of an auditory learner, that's going to be more effective feedback for them. Or if they're not a super confident typer, it's just another way that you can get the ideas across without getting bogged down by the text.
So in conclusion, we think this type of tool, and I want to be clear that this it's not about the tool, it's about the learning that it can showcase. So this is a fabulous tool. There's other tools out there. This is the one we're using. And we found we purchased this as a district in about February, January of last year. It's really taken off in the K-5 range. And we found that there's just been a lot of activity on it. We thought it was worth bringing to all of you this evening. A couple of things for just people to know. In our district, we have our instructional innovation TOSAs that go around the district, and people like Matt, and they're happy to work with teachers and families and get everyone connected. There's a couple of links we threw in here. I think this is available document which have the basics of Seesaw and Seesaw for parents. And then, just so you know, in our future plans, we really think that these are important tools because of how they empower students and connect students to their the rest of the world around them. And so we really just plan to keep finding tools that do this and then leveraging the tools that we have. Ideally, we'd expand digital portfolio use in appropriate areas going forward, and we just like that it can highlight innovative instructional practice. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions, etc., anything? Or go.
So you said that Seesaw's really taken off at K through 5 level. What about at secondary? What do you think is either a barrier to it or?
It's comparable at that level.
Yeah. So we were in a discussion about this today, and while we think this is a really phenomenal tool, we also know that we have to prepare our students for the other tools that they're going to use in life. So in a perfect world, students would be developing products that they'll use the rest of their life, whether it's a really well-maintained social media page that has information that they'd like to share, but they appropriately protect it and sort of take the appropriate measures. So we want to sort of transition them to more sort of real-world tools. So there's an argument to be made, and Matt and I were talking about that today, about is this, should we try to work with this more in middle school and figure out how to transition students over? But we do also know that a senior who has a Seesaw portfolio probably isn't going to feel the same way about it as a second grader. So we know there's a cutoff point there, and it's probably less than 12th grade. So that's what we're trying to figure out right now.
Well, but, as you said, it's not the tool, and that there are other tools. So, I mean, I certainly know I was a teacher, and in my last year of teaching, I started to use, digital communication, and, I had first I had a Blackboard page, but then I transitioned to a program called Haiku, which was great for, organizing my work, and for communicating with students and having students be able to, keep track of things too. So at the secondary level, do you think a lot of teachers are using various digital tools?
Yeah, so in specialized classes, they'll have their own little platforms for that. A lot of classrooms use Google Drive as their basis, or Google Sites, where students will develop a site and embed content there. If it were me, my recommendation, if I were back teaching in the classroom, I would want students to create their own Google site, which they can maintain and update content on.
Just to pick up a little bit on one thing, I think one of the things that seems so intriguing because they're so successful is the interaction between home and school.
Yeah.
Like that just seems seamless. And seeing how Google Drive, say, works at secondary, parents are really engaged with that. Like that's not really a tool for family engagement. It works for kids to kind of connect with each other in terms of sharing projects. So I don't know if this is what you're saying. It's like, is there anything that is not this, but something similar that would work for middle school kids that would also enable families to engage with what they're doing?
Yeah, I haven't identified that exact product yet. It's certainly something that we're interested in looking into further, but right now, no.
Go ahead, Christian.
I guess my question is, how did this help with engagement of those difficult to reach parents that we weren't, engaging with before? Because we know that's always a struggle. You wish you had 100% parental participation and connectivity. Has this been an aid in that area?
I know I have the benefit of having about 9 of my students from last year. And I'm thinking of one student in particular that I've had a difficult time getting the parent in. That parent makes quite a few comments. They're more like, good job, and then her little pet name for her daughter. But to me, that's motivating, and she's able to see and talk. Do I have everybody? No. And I do, then my next step is, so at first it was the paper email. I saw parents signed up. Some parents were signed up from last year, that their second grade teacher, even if they weren't in my classroom, already used the site, the Seesaw. And then the ones that weren't, my guess is about 4 to 5 signed up, and I have about 4 to 5 that have not. So now it's, I bet if I print out 2 or 3 and again invite them, these are some of the things that you can see. Because my guess is they just don't know what they would see on there. So yeah, I think after this year, I'd be able to answer that question even better. I'll let you know.
I also would say that this, while it might not always, it provides us a roadmap of what families we really want to target and say, we might need to do some extra communication. So just that alone, having a tool that can sort of show us, okay, we've reached these families, and someone like Karen can sort of drill down. That alone is a valuable tool to have, even if it hasn't completely solved it.
There's one little boy, and the parents are very involved, but there's one little boy that goes home, and I don't know how many of your children have come home and they're younger. How was school? What'd you do today? Fine, good, and that's the end of it. So even if you are an involved family, now you have substance to talk about. Today I noticed that you did a science experiment. Besides that, what else? Who was your science partner? What did you learn? What more do you want to learn? So even the parents that are involved, it gives them more. There's one little boy in my class, his mom he comes home and he just says, school's for me. It's not, I'm not talking about it. It's my thing. And he said that to her, it's my thing. So she's like, she has to ask another parent in my room whose daughter's in my room to find out what's going on in between, me communicating with her. So this is, it opens a lot of avenues, I think, to talk to children, even parents who we would consider are involved. And sometimes it just brings that work that comes home in their backpack to life, instead of just looking at it like another worksheet.
How archival is it? Like, I'm just thinking some of that stuff is pretty priceless. Like, you know, if I when they are now in like high school, can they still access some of those clips?
That I don't know, and I do think families can print their portfolio.
Can download.
Yeah.
Can they?
You can download them.
And you can download them. Here's a parent you can ask. As a parent's point of view,
So you don't
Dr.
have to-
Brown, what do you think?
Yeah.
A couple things, if I may. Mr. Ainsley, Ms. Harris, and Mr. Granger, we were at an event a few weeks ago where the word innovation kept coming up, and how innovation is defined is so different across our country right now. Every other district at that event defined innovation as doing something different. And what I think we're hearing this evening is we're doing something different that's making instruction better, which is different. And also, we've empowered educators. And everyone at that event, they would pick a digital tool of some sort, it would be different, and then everyone else in the district would have to use it. And it was picked from the superintendent or the board level, and then it was pushed down. And this is an example of how we've gone about technology innovations here. This was from educators. I remember last spring when you said, this is a tool that I like, and every teacher in our school district should use it. And I had no clue what you were talking about. And that day I got the email from Landon, who was posting something about what she was doing in her class. And I was a winner. You won me over then, but then for some reason, over the last 6 months, you've sold everyone else in our school district on this. And it didn't come from Zach, it didn't come from instructional technologists, it didn't come from me, it came from the folks we've empowered to be with our babies every day. It's an amazing tool. Tonight I'm seeing how I need to step up my comment game. I'm a good job, life kind of daddy. And now I realize that I gotta write it. But I gotta tell you, every time I get something from my little girl, who's been in your room for 2 years now, it brings tears in my eyes. Just because I miss her all day, and plus I get to see the kind of thinking she's involved with all day long, and it's special. And we've had a lot of educators come here over the years, and all of them have been great. But I gotta tell you, Karen Arnold is one of the best educators I've ever had in my life, period. And the impact she's having on every child, including my two, means so much to me. So thank you for sharing.
Well, I'm humble, thank
Yeah.
you. You can also use other platforms within Seesaw. So, for instance, we just did Flipgrid videos we're partnering with BJM, and we did a Flipgrid to introduce ourselves to them. And I know I can get that into Seesaw. However, I just need to take some of that time, PD, in my pajamas to figure out how to do that. We can do chatter picks, we can do a lot of things. So Seesaw is a nice platform that can use other platforms on the computer too. I'm not just stuck with Seesaw. We can embed other things that we're doing on the internet into Seesaw, into that portfolio.
Go ahead, Sean. A couple just quick responses. In terms of the sort of archiving, I would recommend, I'm sure parents do, is to take it off, right? So a lot of school districts and colleges and universities and whatever keep changing their platforms, and once they change the platform, you no longer have as much access if you don't have the same contract that you had before. But it seems like that's phenomenal. I'm intrigued, by the way, in actually teaching and modeling how to write positive comments, not for parents, right? But for youth who are going up in that world where they're going to be active, and oftentimes it will be ephemeral, that they will have to, or not ephemeral, eternal in regards, they will have to sort of define and or defend what they write. This seems amazing, but what I keep asking myself is, what are we doing with our parents who don't have access? And how, and what, so it's absolutely phenomenal. I can see as a parent or a caregiver, that kind of interaction, the ability to engage would be amazing. But I also know colleagues and friends of mine who don't have access, and sort of how to, so it's not, I'm just trying to figure out what are we doing in that regard to push that out.
So I'm blessed in my classroom as far as making my life easier, as every parent has access to the internet. I had one parent last year that her phone was on again, off again. So I knew right away to print that little girl's portfolio. And the reason I know everybody, even though they're maybe have not hooked up with Seesaw, is I do my conferences online. And every parent has signed up and responded to that. So that is sort of a barometer that tells me, okay, I know they've gotten this, they just don't know the value yet of it, and then that's my job. And that's my job to make sure I'm communicating that. One thing as a parent too, you can only see your child's portfolio. I have that on there. So you can't get on and see everybody else's. So I mean, I think that's something that I've been teaching 26 years, we've always struggled with. From when I taught out at Enfield and did home visits and went to the homes to try to get the parents involved, the families involved. I think that will always be an ongoing struggle, but I think it's important that we keep asking ourselves that. And I do like that Seesaw can give me at least online, and I can print their journal. But yeah, it's my goal. I'll come back in June, let you know how I did.
And I would add that that is an ongoing issue. It's kind of across the board, but I think it is those actions where you give the hard copies and you keep trying to get them to sign up. And we do know that the percentage of families that don't have any access at all ever is it's not zero, but it's fairly low. So when you have strong teachers that can sort of identify the needs of the 2 or 3 families in a classroom, that's been a good tactic.
And because you can get it on your phone now, I know once we were able to use our phones with the internet, my family's involvement went up as far as responding to emails and things like that. So way back in the day when you had to have a device, that was a lot less then.
Anything else for these good people? Outstanding. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you to the other students.
Exactly. Thank them tomorrow. Thanks, Doctor. We're gonna go from that to outstanding.
To us? Definitely
No, it's,
Not as exciting.
to the outstanding audit report that we have to not only perform, but also review and accept.
That is correct, that's right. So there's a deadline every year, mid-October typically, for the school district financials. And this is not just an Ithaca City School District process, this is all school districts in New York State, including BOCES as well. Will work tirelessly with their auditors, and that's a huge commitment by many, many staff people. So before I even present this to you, I just wanted to say thank you to our treasurer, Lisa Bussman, and our account superior, Angela Jordan, who's just absolutely fantastic and really organized everything for this audit. We had an audit committee meeting that we essentially went through page by page, a draft audit. We looked at all of the content. This audit report and many of the other documents that come along with that will be posted on the website. We'll get that up after it is accepted by the board. We also submit this to a number of places. There's a portal in State Ed that we submit these figures to so that they can track our progress as well. The audit is comprised of lots of different pieces to it. There's an executive summary, if you'd like sort of the brief. There's the larger document, the financial report. This is, quite lengthy, a lot of footnotes, but really good explanations if you were curious about how to find something or what comprises a line. That's there. It looks at the general fund, which is the budget that is voted on by the public. Also, special aid funds like our title grants, our food service budget, our capital projects, and it goes through and gives you sort of an accounting. What's really wonderful about an audit is that there's a historical perspective to it as well. It sort of tells us where we've come from and then where we've landed. And I apologize for the graininess of this. We took like a snapshot of it, but again, on the website, we'll have a little bit better picture. This I'd like to call is the sort of honor or homage to Jay Shrew. When he was on the board and when I came on board, he really said, I really like this. This is at the end of the audit document, once you find it online. And what he really liked about this page, and I agree, is that it sort of is just a snapshot of sort of that historical perspective, and very simply in terms of where we are from revenue and then where we are in terms of expenditure. Obviously, as you all know, when we do a budget, right, we balance a budget by having our revenue and our expenditures equal each other. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's how we're gonna end the year, right? A budget is an estimation of what we think it takes to run the district and what we think it takes in terms of expenditures to support the district throughout the year. And so, as a business official, we always strive to sort of work with all of our partners and all of our stakeholders to say, okay, we wanna always bring in more money than we thought, and we always wanna spend less than what we thought, right? And that's much to the chagrin of many, but we do it, right? And we do it with a big smile on our face. No, not all business officials, just me. And so, the revenues, as you can see, we had a budgeted amount, and I think we exceeded it a little bit. A lot of times, we were pretty close on state aid, that's the revenues from state sources. For those of you that have tracked sort of state aid in years past, you can sort of see that we had kind of this like little here in this moment between 2012, 2011, 2013, we didn't see a lot of increases in revenue, that was those G-ups since then. But again, if you take a look at our state aid versus really where we bring in most of our revenue in terms of our taxes, that is on us, that is on the taxpayers of the Ithaca City School District. And we take a budget to them, and they tell us if they support it or not through the budget vote. And that tax is the levy amount that we bring in, right? So people are getting their tax bills right now, that's their rate, that's based on the full assessed value of the whole community, right? We, because of a tax cap, regardless of the assessed value of the community, can bring in a certain amount, it's predictable. We put that out as part of our revenue. So what we set in our budget document is what you're going to see here in the audit report. Those don't usually fluctuate, okay? The tuition payments are typically payments that are coming in from sources that we get from other districts that pay for their kids that go to private school here, but we also get money from Cornell in terms of sort of covering tuition of students that I think historically of students that lived in Cornell-sponsored housing that we actually can't get taxes from those families because they're on land-granted institution land. Local sources is just little things here and there, things that we bring in. Federal sources, that's really our Medicaid. We do a lot of billing for Medicaid in terms of the students that qualify, and that's a lot of paperwork to get those dollars in, and that's a big thank you to the special education department for doing that with the business office as well. And then transfers from other funds is just sort of like transfer from capital projects or from a capital line into the revenue. So that's our revenue here, and you can see we sort of had a very steady kind of incline as we go forward. It's almost predictable in terms of revenue. Expenditures really fluctuate almost down, there's a few categories, really there's three that you almost see fluctuations every year. One of them is instruction regular day, and that's mainly because it depends on if it's a settlement year of a contract or not, right? So you'll see that there's certain years where it looks like we had a big jump, that's probably, or it was held flat, that's probably because we hadn't settled a contract from one year to the next. When we do settle contracts, that means that that salary increase will go up either a percentage or a flat rate for everybody, and we're talking millions, right? So that's where you'll see those increases. So again, we had settled a number of contracts from one year to the next, and this is sort of moving us forward in terms of instruction. What hangs off of instruction is the employee benefits line. Part of the employee benefits line is health insurance, okay? And that's pretty much a predictable, a flat fee if you're on a family plan or an individual plan. There are parts of employee benefits that also hang off of salaries, so things like Social Security, TRS, ERS, those are all a percentage of salary. So as salary goes up, those fringe benefits also go up as well because it's a percentage of that salary base. This one went up a little bit from one year to the next, and again, it's sort of, at the audit committee we explained this. Now that we're self-insured and we have health insurance that we're managing in-house, this line actually has some a natural reserve built into it. We talk about it at the Health Insurance Advisory Council, and we talk about it very publicly in the finance committees as well. And this actually, what happens at the end of the year, when we just agreed with all of our bargain units, right now, until we're able to have an official reserve for health insurance, is that we're trying to carry that money forward to create a cushion for us for the following year. So this little jump here is actually because we've encumbered money from this year to help us pay for claims that go into the next fiscal year. They're called IBNRs, or incurred but not yet received. And so there's a little bit of that there that was encumbered and moved forward. So that's why you'll see that bit of a jump. But pretty much we've done a really good job in terms of our health insurance benefits, in terms of the rate itself, on trying to keep that pretty flat. And then finally, the only other thing that really fluctuates is our debt service line. And you'll see that sort of has been kind of keeping consistent. We have this as a schedule. And you'll see, look back here, it was 3 million and then it's grown. This is because we're really paying that principal and interest off on our $98 million that we borrowed in 2007. And so, again, as we've talked about in other meetings, this is a line that we try to keep pretty flat, especially now with the tax cap calculation, because this is a huge factor in terms of being able to have capital exclusions. So we're able to actually qualify those in our tax cap calculation to continue us bringing in our revenue from those sources. It also brings in building aid for us. The more work that we do, the more revenue we have in from our state sources, which is the building aid that's part of that. So in a nutshell, that's sort of our audit report in terms of the explanation. That bottom line here is the difference between what we brought in, real revenue, and what we spent, real expenditure. Okay, and so as you can see, there were years when we had to dip into fund balance, those years when we were making some really difficult decisions saying, okay, we have to use this fund balance to sustain our operations. We didn't want to cut program, we didn't want to cut back. That sort of cloud did not lift like we were hopeful of or anticipating. And so we were able then to go over the tax cap. You'll see here, this is the year when we brought in more revenue and we were able to sort of right the ship again and try to get us on a path. Essentially, when this number is in parents, it's a deficit, that means that we're utilizing fund balance to support our expenditures. When it's in a positive, it means that we're actually building our fund balance. And that money can go in to things like the capital reserve, which is where we buy our buses. Or it can go into an employee reserve for retirement benefits that we can pay for from there as opposed to putting that right in the general fund. So all in all, we ended the year to a positive, and we continue to do our long-range planning to make sure that if we stay in that positive, we're watching our expenditures, making sure our revenues outpace it, and there might be times when we decide that it's a year where we have to dip into fund balance, and we'll utilize that as well. So that's part of the long-range planning for the district. That's an audit in a nutshell.
Financial statement in a nutshell, I guess. Brad, it was the first audit meeting I think I've missed, apparently in 12 years, I guess, because somebody changed the time. But, well, Brad, Jay's the chair of the committee, but he's not here.
Well, not yet, because we'll have to vote him in the next time.
Okay, next time.
We didn't have board members present. So.
Okay, there you go. Brad, I'll ask is,
A few other highlights?
Yes, please, if you could.
Sure. So a couple of things. The general fund doesn't show you the school lunch fund. I'd like to give a shout out to our school lunch managers. We're one of those districts that does not, with local tax dollars, have to subsidize our food service program. And again, this year that was the case. They had a positive result, so I want to note that. Going into the footnotes, follow along, I'm on page 31.
Brad always likes the footnotes, just so everybody knows out there that the footnotes
They're
are
very important.
Footnotes are where it's at.
What page, Brad?
I'm on page 31, it's note 8. Amanda brought up debt and trying to manage debt and keep it steady. One of the things will be coming to the voters with a bond project in May. It'll have a large number on it, but we won't be borrowing it all at once. Our objective will be to borrow it over a period of years, do projects over a period of years, and keep our debt service relatively steady. Our objective is to not have that impact the tax rate one way or the other. Keep maintaining our 1 million square feet of learning spaces, and at the same time try and keep that steady. You see that we've got about 70 million of outstanding debt at the end of this year. It'll be down to 63 million at the beginning of next. Our authority to borrow is up to 245 million, just to give you some idea that we are nowhere near our borrowing limit. And I'm not advocating that we do that. I'm just pointing out that it's been well managed over the years, and we want to continue that. Keep that at roughly that same kind of a space. All right, and I'll skip forward. I'm going to go to note 10, page 39. For our employees, they'll be happy to note that their ERS and TRS are fully funded. The promises that have been made to them for pensions are funded. In fact, the TRS, the teacher's retirement, is actually, by this calculation, slightly overfunded. More than 100% of what it needs. So just for our employees' knowledge, the state is funding charging us for those correctly and is funding them in their entirety. So the promise made to you is being kept. Now I'm going to skip to page 43 in the middle of note 11. I'm not going to bore you with what OPEB is all about and what the how to calculate it and so forth. Let me just give you the Reader's Digest version. This GASB requires, the Government Accounting Standards Board requires municipal governments, including school districts, to calculate the cost, the value going forward of promises they've made to their employees for benefits after retirement other than a pension, other employee benefits. At the beginning of the year, our balance was $334 million, the estimate. Now remember, this is out over, people are gonna live a long time, they're out over 40 years or whatever, but it's out a long way. And you'll note that this year we ended at 308. It actually went down, which is counterintuitive as to why it would go down and why is that. You'll note changes in assumptions or other inputs is a negative 42 million. That's the change we made in retiree healthcare. That was the shift to the Hartford plan for our employees, and it improved our balance sheet by $42 million this year. So kudos to Amanda for that, and Kate Reed, who did a lot of work on that as well. But that's a recognition of that shift. And for the taxpayers for the next 30 to 40 years, that move is estimated to have saved them $42 million. So a pretty significant, I know it's all behind the curtain kind of work, not out there in front of everyone every day, but a pretty significant shift there. So I wanted to point that out. Thank Amanda and the others for working on that.
Right, and those are real numbers. I mean,
Those are real numbers. That's from an actuary, not
Right.
from us.
all the GASB regulations always give us these huge numbers that we kind of throw up our hands at. But
For those who are
over
really
time,
excited about it, you can, Google GASB 75 and read it.
there's been other GASBs in the past, right, as well. So, but it is important to know that that is an obligation that future taxpayers will pay, or not pay, to the tune of
$300 million.
Right, exactly.
So it's quite a promise made to our employees and our retirees. And we do fund that annually as needed.
Right, exactly.
Those are the only ones I wanted to highlight, but
Sean, go ahead.
A quick addition on to Brad's first highlight of our lunch service folks. We also changed our policy last year to make sure that students were not turned away, and hope that's still the case, from food should they be in need. That was a change in our policy from years prior. If someone was below a balance, that we were reminding them they were below a balance. And so I mentioned that in essence to say that is even further acknowledgement of their great management of that fund as well. So, and I hope that that's experienced in our lunchrooms, and if it's not, please let us know. But that's the plan. So, fantastic.
I did read a bit of the summaries, and certainly it should be noted that, as we would hope, that there, for another year, there's no findings, correct? I mean, there's nothing that was out of the ordinary or that they felt they had to mention, correct? Again.
the management letter deleted a couple of items and didn't add any. So
That's correct.
Right.
it's very good.
So again, reflection of the great work that you all do. And we make fun of audit committee and make fun of the audit a bit, but frankly, we don't turn on the lights, we don't hire anyone, we can't do anything without the ability to pay the bills. And so this is basically the district's report card as we move through the years. What did we actually spend the money on, and where did we spend it? How and where? And you did mention those large deficits that would go through. That was the gap elimination adjustment. You never know when the state is going to take things away, and how do we manage around that? Not as big a, we're in the green, but not to a large amount. So are we? I mean, we are getting to that point where we're going to need to keep managing that.
Absolutely.
That flow of revenue and flow of expenses.
Absolutely.
Of course, we always do that, but it's nicer when that's a little bit of a bigger delta, a larger difference.
And I feel that that's part of when we do our fund balance conversations, it's part of the year-round planning for the budget. All of these things have to go together, right? They all blend together. So it's our status of where we end the year, where we're going in terms of how we're managing our budget, and where do we want to be in terms of our savings accounts and reserves, so that if things like the state and the GEA, right, hit us again, that we're prepared. The fund balance matters when we're going out for a capital project, right, and we're looking for a bond that affects our bond rating. So all of those things play into one another, and it's always, with my colleagues and all the stakeholders in the school district, right, you're always evaluating the efficacy of the programs, right, that we have, and sometimes that means that we won't continue to do the things that we've always done because they may not be effective. And so it may mean that it's going to cost more money, or it may mean that it costs less money, because sometimes best practice may not have a dollar amount that way to it, right? So we're always evaluating those pieces.
And again, 611,000 to the good is better than 7.6 million to the negative. So,
that's right.
But as well, I think as we said before, we were unwilling to cut programs and dramatically cut staff, and so we tried to manage through it and eventually asked the community to support a bit more. So it was. So I guess everything's okay. Is that correct, Dr. Brown? Or are we?
Yes, sir. You mentioned the word report card. Like the equity report card, we've been facilitating conversations with the community about how to use that data, that sum of the data. We're in the early stages of planning with the support and help of the board, an opportunity for us to use this report card to plan. So for the community, we hope to have a work session in the near future where we take this report card and we use it to engage in a conversation about how we plan to move forward with our finances. Yeah.
Nice segue, Dr. Brown. That I like that. That's good. Sean,
Do we need to entertain a motion?
I believe.
I'll move a motion to accept the audit as presented.
Second.
Second by Brad. Anyone else? Any questions? To the guy? Anything? Numbers? Okay. The resolution is in front of you. All in favor? That's not quite everyone. Moira?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I was not trying to be coercive.
Right. She cannot vote if she wants.
Yeah, right. It's, do I have to go through the motions? That's everyone. We do have that quorum. So, thanks, Amanda.
Appreciate it.
Policy, Sean?
Yes, we have 3 policies that are on our agenda for this evening. These are all policies that were in response to state mandates and Title I funds. The first policy is policy 1900, parental involvement in Title I complaint process. And it's currently up for a second reading and adoption this evening.
Thanks, Sean. We just heard about parental involvement.
And this is primarily, just to clarify, this is a policy that is about parental involvement in Title I schools, though we were having a conversation about how it may be germane to all of our buildings as well.
And this was a required thing, right?
The section about the Title I complaint procedures is required. We already had policy 1900 passed previously we added the Title I complaint in response to the new state mandates.
So it's the additional language.
Federal mandate, ESSA.
That's what we're looking at. And so we should be, it is a long policy. It's a lot of reading.
The primarily new language is where it says the complaint procedure. The Title I complaint procedures is the new language.
Right, a few pages in.
Yes.
And it is the second reading, so.
It went through policy committee last time, it was approved. We had a number of conversations.
Well, if it's good for policy, I'm good, man. So
We spend time talking about does, ands, and ors. It gets a serious read.
mainly, Moira, do you like it, or that's?
It works for me.
Okay. Pat Conflict, so she is your other partner in crime on the policy committee. So if Pat is good with it.
So I'll move policy 1900 as presented.
Second.
Second by Moira. Anything else, Chris, and anyone? Good, Brett?
I'm gonna go against the policy.
Yeah, I wouldn't dare. All in favor? That's everyone, so we're good, thank you.
Policy 5151 is about homeless children, in particular transportation for children who are in secure housing. This is also in response to state regulations. In particular, it provides, and this was a great question that Ann was asking today with Kate as well, we'll talk about when we talk about foster care, but the state is making sure that there's a reimbursement account for districts to provide transportation for students who may find themselves in difficult situations. We'll talk about the next policy, which would be foster care. This policy is insecure housing or homelessness.
So when you had this on board docs, and some of it was highlighted in yellow, was that new language? Okay, so
That was
the other
primarily
stuff
the
was
new language.
the established language. One of the things that I had a question about when I was reading it over, that it looks like there's certain decisions about whether or not a child needs that transportation that are not the decision of the school district.
That's correct.
And so, I don't know if it's answerable at all within this policy, but I guess what's the rubric? What are the factors that make it our responsibility or their responsibility?
And I'll forward the language that Kate Reed sent the response to you, which also gave a little bit of the rubric language. It came at about 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock this evening. So Kate did a great job of quoting. Just for the community to know, sometimes that we choose not to purposely establish those kinds of criteria in our policy, in large part because every 6 months or every 4 months or every year, the state changed what those requirements are. And so what we try to do is just make reference to the actual state law. And so what you'll find oftentimes is us quoting education law 6B-423Z, whatever it may be, and not getting into that. Kate's response was, in particular, we are decided to be the determinant district to provide transportation and or provide it in consultation or when a child is working with our local Department of Service or our Office of Children and Family Services. They will decide. But it doesn't come at our expense because we're allowed to then get reimbursement from the state. That's what this policy does.
From a practical standpoint, are we actually transporting anybody 50 miles?
We did last year. We transported a child
49.6 miles.
Yes.
Really?
And if I'm not mistaken, talking with Lisa Rieger, we also reserve about $4,000, at least $4,000 per year for transportation costs. Is that about right?
It's in title funds and it's not just for transportation costs.
Right. But some money is set aside in case we incur those costs.
And does the state reimburse us?
This is new, if I'm not mistaken, right? This is coming, it's been about a year, under a year?
Pretty new.
Yeah.
What part is it that the state reimburses?
Yes.
Canadian law used to be just at your expense.
So this is a funded mandate then?
Let's see what happens after let's submit some reimbursement forms and see what comes back our way. The state is not mandated to reimburse, we can apply for reimbursement.
Okay.
We shall find out.
Find out, yeah.
We'll be back to legislative advocacy to talk about what this means.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so I move policy 50, I already did that or no?
No, I don't think
I move policy 5151 for a second reading and adoption this evening.
Second.
Second by Moore. Folks are scanning, reading through, anything? No other questions, Chris, you good?
I'm good.
You actually have reading glasses on, I can't read anything, so, no, I'm good. Once again, I trust policy committee. All in favor? That's gonna be everyone, once again, and Sean, maybe one more?
Yep, and the last policy for this evening is policy 8401. This is transportation for students in foster care. This is also, this is a new policy for us. We have not had this policy previously. And it is similar in response to some of the other policies that we're working with our local partner agencies to provide transportation for students who may be placed in foster care, including students who may have a home school in a different district, but are now foster in a placement in the ICSD, and vice versa when that happens as well.
Second read, right?
This is also a second reading, and we can have questions, but I move policy 8401 for a second reading and adoption this evening.
Second.
Second by Moore. Is it as you expected it to be, Moore?
Well, I'm noticing some capitalization problems.
Uh-oh.
Like, all of those bullets, they'll all should be capitalized.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we can make the grammar changes, as I'm sure we will.
yeah.
And we've said it to other folks previously, we've also had some significant conversations about the ways in which bullets are used, numbering being used, if letters should punctuation,
Capitalization.
our use of colons and semicolons was a nice lengthy conversation, and so,
Commas.
right, well, we've solved the commas, we will use the Oxford comma, we've
Yes.
decided that we know.
Thanks.
True story, 20-minute conversation.
I'm not sure how you guys missed the bullets having small capital T.
I don't know.
I think it may have been me, I probably transferred the wrong
So
capitalization.
now my faith in the policy committee has been shaken, but not stirred.
I will make the two, I see 3 punctuation marks, we'll fix it.
Okay.
So noted
Oh,
with,
yeah.
with the changes noted.
Yep.
Any other questions? Glad Margaret picked that up.
Yeah.
We're gonna vote on, it's been moved, seconded, but with those changes. All in favor? That's everyone. We do have some other business, but we are moving right through. Legal notice, public hearing for district safety plan.
I'll move the resolution on a legal notice of public hearing for district safety plan as presented in the agenda.
Is that fire drill thing I heard? I think it is. And this is not quite pro forma, but it is something that we do annually, correct? Doctors, yes. And actually, a ton of work goes into the safety plan, and it is, and we will move to adopt it soon.
Right, where is the safety plan and who's updating it this year? Is it, because it's not coming from committee?
The safety plan was updated last year through the district safety committee, and it's making its way to the board via that route.
So when is the?
23rd.
And it has to be posted after today, these 30 days of public posting or sometime?
No, that was, I'm learning a lot.
Yep.
This is one of the plan has to be available for 30 days, but the notice of the meeting needs to be posted prior to the meeting. So the plan is available online and in the superintendent's office.
Correct.
Proposed plan.
So if a person wanted to fund it then?
It's
Online?
right on the.
Right on the book.
Fantastic.
Okay, and this is just the notice for the plan,
For the hearing.
public
Notice for the
hearing.
hearing.
Sorry, for the public hearing, right. Okay, good. It was moved, seconded? Brad was. Yeah, Brad moved. Okay, all in favor? That's everyone. Other discussion items, anything, anyone? Anything, kids, guys? Good? You're all good? Keep asking. So, I don't think I have anything. Upcoming dates, anything of importance other than the usual? Are we good?
Good.
Is curriculum going to be prior to?
Yes, it was.
That's pretty, that's,
Yes.
it was today and it's pretty much going to be that way?
I think that.
A work session
Stay
for
that way.
curriculum? Okay. Will be prior to one of our monthly board meetings. All right, so we're all good and there's, good and bad teams playing baseball tonight, I guess, Brad, right? So,
That's what I hear. I hear there's baseball.
Good and bad. So without objection, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Wow, efficient.